Have you ever noticed this totally wild paradox about your own mind? You sit down, close your eyes, and try to do absolutely nothing. You clear your thoughts, and yet, boom, almost instantly, a whole universe of memories, future plans, and just completely random ideas sparks to life. It turns out, when you think you're doing nothing, your brain is actually executing some of its most complex and critical programming. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to explore the hidden machinery of your mind and uncover the incredible science of the resting brain. Okay, let's dive into this. Think about your daily commute, or maybe a time you've totally zoned out during a long meeting. You're physically present, but mentally, you are miles away, probably planning what you're going to have for dinner instead of listening to the quarterly earnings report. Well, for a long time, science actually viewed this zoning out as a bug in the system. They thought it was a sign of a brain just idling, kind of like a car engine left in neutral. But as we'll see, that couldn't be farther from the truth. To understand what's really happening, we have to follow this incredible historical detective story. Back in the 1920s, Hans Berger, the guy who invented the EEG, first noticed that the brain's electrical oscillations actually never stop, even at rest. Fast forward to the 1950s, and scientists like Louis Sokolov observed that the brain's energy consumption barely drops at all when a person stops doing complex math and just rests. Then, in the 1990s, PET scans revealed a really bizarre pattern. Certain brain areas consistently powered down when a person started a focused task. This all culminated in a brilliant 2001 breakthrough by neurologist Dr. Marcus Raichle. He realized these deactivated areas weren't just randomly turning off. They were actually a unified system that turns on the literal moment we stop focusing on the outside world. He completely shifted the paradigm from this idea of an idle brain to a powerful background processing engine. Dr. Raichle named this system the Default Mode Network, or DMN. And this isn't just one isolated little region. It is a highly coherent, interconnected network of brain areas that fire together. When you aren't actively solving a math problem, reading a map, or listening to a conversation, the DMN boots up. It is the sophisticated software running your mind wandering, your daydreaming, and that constant internal narrative that makes you, well, you. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer metabolic cost of this network. The brain as a whole uses a whopping 20% of your body's total energy budget. 20%. And guess what? The vast majority of that energy is not spent on active external tasks. It's largely fueled by the default mode network, constantly humming along in the background. Your brain is investing a massive amount of your daily caloric intake just to sustain this so-called resting state. So what exactly is it doing with all that energy? Section 1. Anatomy of the network. Mapping the glowing nodes. To understand where all that energy goes, I want you to imagine diving right into a beautiful, glowing, deep dark mode neural universe. This neurological dance is choreographed by 4 primary glowing nodes. First off, we have the posterior cingulate cortex, which acts as the network's central switchboard, constantly combining information from your memory and your perception. Next is the medial prefrontal cortex, the evaluator. It handles self-reflection and emotional processing, essentially always asking, okay, what does this mean to me? Then we have the precuneus, serving as the visualizer for our mental imagery. And finally, the angular gyrus steps in as the meaning maker, connecting language, spatial cognition, and memory. Together, these nodes collaborate seamlessly to construct your very sense of self. By working together, these regions give the resting brain its actual superpowers. Literally, doing nothing is a highly active state. The DMN builds your narrative identity by stitching your past, present, and future together into one cohesive story. It drives memory consolidation, basically replaying recent events through the hippocampus to lock them into your long-term storage. It handles prospection, which is your amazing ability to mentally simulate and plan for the future. And remarkably, it drives theory of mind, our ability to empathize, evaluate social situations, and understand what other people might be thinking. This background processing is absolutely crucial to our most uniquely human traits. Section 2, the creative spark. How daydreaming solves problems. So the crucial point is, have you ever wondered why your absolute best ideas always seem to happen when you're taking a shower, going for a walk, or just doing the dishes? Well, this brings us to the dual process theory of creativity. It's this beautiful push and pull relationship between 2 distinct networks. On one side, we have the default mode network. Because it isn't tied down by immediate external tasks, the DMN is totally free to wander, making spontaneous connections between completely unrelated concepts. This is the incubation phase, right? Where those wild, out-of-the-box ideas are born. On the other side is the frontoparietal control network, which handles conscious evaluation and goal-directed execution. So the DMN dreams up the wild solution, and then the frontoparietal network steps in to evaluate it and actually make it a reality. But how does the brain know when to switch between daydreaming and execution? Enter the salience network. Think of this network as the brain's ultimate traffic controller. It's constantly scanning your environment. When it detects something important, like a sudden loud noise or your boss asking your question out of nowhere, the salience network acts as an off switch for the DMN. It suppresses the daydreaming network and instantly hands control over to your task-positive, focused networks. This switching mechanism is absolutely vital because of what scientists call attention economics. Sustained focus isn't for you guys. Every minute you spend in deep concentration depletes limited neurochemicals like dopamine and norepinephrine, as well as glucose in the prefrontal cortex. Your brain actively tracks this metabolic budget. When you hit your limit, the DMN steps in automatically. Your mind wanders not because you lack discipline, but because your brain is forcing a cognitive recovery to restore those depleted systems. It's built right in. Section 3. The glitch in the system. The dark side of rest. However, this intricate machinery doesn't always run perfectly. Let's examine what happens when this network fails to switch off or becomes a bit too rigid. And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of hyperconnectivity. Imagine a scenario where the nodes of the DMN become too tightly bound together, communicating in this endless, closed loop. Instead of productive mind-wandering or creative incubation, the system just gets stuck. It repeatedly generates a negative internal narrative, replaying the exact same past regrets or simulating the same future threats over and over, effectively trapping the mind in a looping error of rumination. Research has shown that these network disruptions closely correlate with several mental health conditions. For example, in depression, the DMN often shows overactivity that is heavily focused on past-oriented, self-critical loops. In anxiety disorders, the network shifts toward an overactive threat simulation, constantly worrying about the future. And in ADHD, studies actually show a hyperconnected DMN combined with weaker control from the salience network, meaning the brain struggles to suppress that mind wandering when external focus is required. Understanding these conditions as network imbalances offers an incredibly objective biological perspective on how we actually experience the world. Section 4. Mastering the default mode. Working with your wandering mind. Let's move to and see how this builds into an actual strategy. We can learn to strategically manage our brain's default state, working with our architecture rather than fighting it. Science gives us some really clear evidence-based techniques to modulate this DMN activity. Step 1 is focused attention meditation, like mindfulness. Now, this isn't about emptying the mind. It's practically training your brain's salience network to better operate the DMN's off switch. Step 2 is aerobic exercise, which actively restores the neurochemicals needed to boost your task-positive networks. And step 3 is strategic task rotation, like the 25-5 method, working intensely for 25 minutes and then deliberately letting your mind wander for 5. This prevents those forced DMN intrusions by working harmoniously with your natural cognitive budget. So the next time you catch yourself staring out the window, remember, you aren't wasting time. Your brain is consolidating your past, simulating your future, and solving complex problems right there in the beautiful dark mode theater of your mind. By understanding and respecting this hidden universe, you unlock a much deeper level of focus, creativity, and overall well-being. So I leave you with this final thought, knowing what your brain is truly capable of when it's supposedly doing nothing. Are you ready to let your mind wander?